Stephen McDonell is with the BBC as a China correspondent. While working on the riots of Hong Kong, he had an interesting experience with a counter-protester. Anyway, so Stephen was in one of these anti-riot protests recently, and he had this to say.
A protester from a pro-independence group, you could call them.
Okay, a protester from a pro-independence group. A separatist. Someone who wants to break their company into pieces. Yeah, go on.
Has been arrested for having explosives, and the police say 10 Molotov cocktails in a storage area.
Holy wow! This is big news. The rioters, who have already broken into government buildings, bitten off people's fingers, ganged up on innocent women, thrown bricks at police officers, and waged general violence against the city, have now been proven to have bombs? They have a bomb storage area. Look at that! Look at these terrorist weapons! No wonder this is the top news story. But why is the title of this story, Pro-China Hong Kong Protester Calls BBC Reporter Fake News? I mean, shouldn't the title be Anti-China Separatists Arrested for Having Bombs, Knives, and Molotov Cocktails? No? How about Public Calls Anti-China Bombers to be Labeled Terrorist Organization? No? Nothing? If the big story here, according to the BBC, is that someone called them fake news, and not that these people have explosives, that kind of sounds like, well, like fake news, don't you think? Maybe as usual, I'm just exaggerating. I mean, the rest of what he says is going to show that the BBC is straight down the middle, unbiased news, not at all fake.
Now this will fuel the criticism in certain circles that Hong Kong's political crisis is moving into a new, potentially more violent phase. And we saw that last weekend, and we may see it again tomorrow when there'll be a much larger rally than this in favour of democracy.
Dear God, there's already so much to unpack here. So what he just told me is that the concern about the anti-China terrorists is not that they want to burn down buildings, potentially killing people. It's not that they want to destroy their city or that they have now shown the world that what I've been saying all along is true. They want violence. No, according to the BBC, the concern is that this will fuel criticism of them. Why is it bad to criticize anti-China terrorists? Unless, of course, you're saying that the BBC is on their side. If you're saying that the BBC wants more violence, then it all makes sense. Of course you don't want that side to be criticized. And by certain circles, do you mean every single logical person in the world? Who the hell wouldn't criticize a bunch of people burning down their city because they hate their country? Who are the certain circles of people that support this chaos? And notice when he acts like, oh, tomorrow there's going to be a much bigger rally in favor of democracy. While the size of protests are interesting, they aren't how politics actually work, as you know. They are more of an indication of how angry people are about something than how many people believe in it. So while there may be a larger rally on the other side, that in and of itself doesn't prove any kind of big point. But it's the next part that's more revealing. The people who want peace and integration with the rest of the country, you're calling pro-China, while the people with Molotov cocktails who want their country broken, you called pro-democracy? That's not democracy. They don't support democracy. You get it? These words you say are important, Stephen, because when you say them in that way, they reveal how deeply fake the BBC is. You can't be this incompetent or ignorant about China. So the logical conclusion seems to be that you know these aren't pro-democracy people, and yet you go out of the way to call them that. That's fake news, dude.
And there's a sort of anti-media feeling amongst these, it is amongst this crowd, partly because they don't like the reporting from we're doing. Well, there's nothing fake in what we're saying, I'm sorry.
Okay, so now we see this lady come along, and she thinks he's talking smack about the unity crowd, and she's saying he's fake news. She thinks he's saying they aren't peaceful or something, and he responds with, well, there's nothing fake that we're saying. Stephen, you are saying facts, but you're using weasel words and slipping in certain ideologically charged phrases. That's opinion. That's not the news, that's fake news. When someone says you're fake news, they aren't saying you're making up facts entirely. They're saying you aren't presenting them in an informative and truthful way. They're saying you're propagandizing in one certain way when you're supposed to be a news agency. That necessitates people like me to counter your BS. I have to come out and call you on it. So believe it or not, the People's Republic of China isn't perfect, but it is what the people want. The burden of proof is on you to prove to me why 1 million people, or however many the real number is, protesting, rioting, burning things down is democratic. Until then, calling it such does nothing but show that when it comes to China, you are fake news. This lady may have misunderstood what you were talking about, but she still accidentally nailed it. Stephen, I don't know anything about you, and you seem like a nice guy. Take a long and hard look at how you're portraying these things, and let me know if you see what I'm talking about. Because what I see is that this is not journalism, it's activism. And it's not even activism that supports the people. It's activism that supports a small minority of people that have a violent crust. That's not democracy. So what is it? Thanks, everyone. 谢谢.